This is one of my favorite lines that the market fundamentalists, or as they call themselves, libertarians and anarcho-capitalists, like to give. In that, war is something that governments do. If we had no governments, we would have no war. Of course, such a thing is just silly. There are so many cases of wars without government that happen all the time, and for the exact same reason that they take place in capitalism. Take Afghanistan, where in a lot of the areas, even before the US invasion, what have you, in Afghanistan, and to a very large extent into stateless capitalist Somalia, the country that doesn't count. When there's no government and capitalism reigns, you have warlords. And warlords go to war. And they fight other warlords for the exact same reasons that capitalist countries fight each other, and the same reason why imperialism exists. When one warlord goes against another warlord, and say it's for influence and power, yes, but what is that power? Well, the opium trade, in the case of Afghanistan, it would be the opium trade and all the kinds of things. One of the most well-connected warlords in Afghanistan is Hamid Karzai's brother, who just recently was murdered. He had almost an absolute total monopoly over all private security contracting in Afghanistan. Not so much Afghanistan, but at least Kandahar. I mean, he ran all of them. All of them went through him. He had his hands in all of them. If he did not outright own them, he was a very, very large businessman who owned on any amount of companies, had entire monopolies over entire things, and he was eventually killed by what is suspected to be another warlord to move in, take his turf, take his businesses, and take his markets. And that is, in the end, what it's about. Markets. You have a market of private security contractors. He dominates it. He controls it. It's capitalism. Somebody came in, killed them off, and they're probably going to move in and take over. A real Scarface kind of scenario. Well, it happened over money and access to a market, and quite often access to resources. Remember, Afghanistan is one of the world's largest untapped mining potential areas, which is why Canada is so highly involved in Afghanistan, when usually Canada stays out of such things. And the same thing goes for Somalia. Warlords are fighting other warlords all the time. There virtually is no government. It virtually hasn't been one since 1991. And it's gone down to having warlords. And the warlords are connected to pirates. They're connected to gun running. They're connected to drugs. They're connected to all kinds of businesses, even legit businesses that the warlords own. And they fight other warlords to take control of these markets, take control of these resources. So we have the exact same thing that's happening. It's no different. They're still fighting for the potential to make profit, domination of a regional market, and domination of resources. The same reasons why war happens in capitalism. Even if we go in another direction, take landlords, feudal and semi-feudal landlords in Nepal before the revolution, and particularly in the more remote regions of the Philippines. Warlords run everything. Or not warlords, landlords run everything. They own all the land, and they hire peasants, exploit them. Same thing that was basically done in the Middle Ages, and all the schemes that for profit making end up going into that, ripping off the people who work for them, exploiting them, and whatnot. Now, these landlords are always looking to get new land, and they're always looking to kick existing peasants who own their own land off of it to take it and exploit it for their own profit. And again, a resource is an arable land on which you can grow things, and it's profitable to do so because you take it and grow the product, you sell it, pay a terrible wage to the people who work it, you have exploitation, you have profit making. And these landlords commit these crimes or hire thugs to do these crimes. These thugs in a more, what often are referred to as a more civilized society, this is called the police. And they fight other warlords, other landlords, take their land. So you have like entire like wars between landlords trying to take over each other's land. You have wars between landlords fighting for an access to resources, an arable, usable piece of land, and the potential to make money from owning that land. It's the exact same thing as capitalism. And even if you took a better first world example, the mafia. What does the mafia do? The mafia owns legitimate businesses. More happening in the past than now because they've lost a lot of power to the bikers and whatnot. So by extension, this also exists with the bikers as well. They'll own a business, and they're the only ones who are allowed to own that business, and they bully other ones out. So you have the mafia attacking, legitimate businesses who are trying to compete, or you have, mafia families attacking other mafia families for control over a territory, basically a market. This family owns this market, and that's how it works. Somebody else comes in, they're competing, they set up their own businesses, and they fight them, kick them out. It's the same thing with street gangs. Often in the ghetto, just about any block corner, there's a guy selling drugs. Now, if you just went and grabbed your own bag of weed or heroin or whatever, and just went down to one of these corners and started selling, the gang who runs that area eventually is going to roll up on you and tell you to leave, if not just outright kill you, because this is their turf, this is their market, this is their geographical, this is their the same way franchises divide up territories. It's exactly the same way. This territory, there is this guy. Nobody else is allowed to come in. Obviously with franchises and legitimate capitalist enterprises, there are competitors allowed in that same region, but these gangs will fight over turf. No, this is our hood. No, this is our hood, and we're the rightful owners of this neighborhood. And it's not about turf and some petty idea of identity that goes towards a gang. Maybe the individual gang members who join up know that. But realistically, the people who run the gangs know this is about access to markets, particularly for drug selling. This is our corner. You don't sell drugs on our corner. You leave our turf right away, or there's a war. The same thing with selling guns. And what happens is you have gangs going to war against each other. Gang wars. They're fighting over the exact same thing. Access to markets, access to resources. With one place is a particularly known crack den, and another gang moves in, they take it, and you got marijuana grow ops and whatnot. So they're happening for the exact same thing. So this idea that wars are an invention of government is absolutely ridiculous. There were wars before government, and there will be wars probably when governments are gone. It's only through a purely stateless communist society where there's no money and the resources are shared that wars will stop. Wars happen because people are fighting over resources or wealth that can be generated from those resources, or in modern day capitalism, the markets. That's why it happens. People seeking profit is why it happens. Eliminate this, they'll stop happening. When the resources are allotted to people according to their need, the wars will stop. So this idea that wars are an invention or completely exist because of governments is absolutely a false notion.